Good morning, everybody. It's the Naming Rights Committee, April 26th. How do the meeting minutes look from July 22nd of 2019? Any proposed changes? Okay, hearing none, then they stand. So we're here today because Jeff, you reached out to me on behalf of the Performing Arts Center, interested in basically putting some parameters around the naming rights discussion with the hopes that you'd be able to approach potential donors for the so-called phase 2 project that we've been talking about for quite some time. Perhaps I should turn it over to one of you to provide any other thoughts or context, and we can take it from there.
Well, thank you, and thanks for holding this meeting, and thank you guys for giving us your time. There are so many variables in the construction of this phase 2. Given the crooked path we've taken towards fundraising, given the number of quotes that have been out there, one is the basic structure, the other one involves extra bathrooms, the other one involves not the bathrooms that the town's paid for; those are in no matter what. And then there's other stuff where the town wants to manage the site. And so the numbers go across a broad span. And some of it is, it's interesting for us to see which direction we're going to go. That federal money didn't pan out, state COVID money didn't pan out. We are in for state bonding with John Hampton. Thank you very much, John. We will apply again for state bonding or state COVID money when it comes up in the fall, if there's any there. We did not find the kind of support that we had hoped for when we tested the market on a capital campaign. So we are looking right now is to we're quoting out, given the marketplace, labor shortages, all the other things that go into construction right now. Can we build the basic storage structure, bathrooms, back end, phase 2, which was designed to begin with the building and never done? Can we do that? And how close to $1 million can we get with that? Because we have some money from the town for the bathrooms. We have a donation from Garmany. We have some money ourselves from the federal COVID relief. So we can get sort of halfway there. So this really could be, if we find somebody who's interested in naming it, it could be a home run to a quick finish.
Jeff, can you remind me what the entire cost of the project is expected to be?
Again, there's $1.2 million for the backside of it, which we know is already low because that was quoted at a time before the supply chain issues and the labor issues, but $1.2 million. We're actively requoting that now to figure out how close are we. There is $2.5 million where we fund future projects and future growth of the organization. There's $2.5 million. There's $4 million where we throw in some of the other town projects and some of the extended infrastructure for the site. So there's a few numbers. One of the number that we're pursuing right now is the low number because we'd really like to have building the backside of the band shell is a very unsexy project, extremely unsexy project. And yet the facility's half done, right? So if we can finish that, we can have on-site staff, we can have meeting rooms, we can have community outreach stuff, we can have places to move things off the stage and have other people come in and perform. It's just going to give us so much more flexibility because our focus over the next few years is we kind of need this done because we want to focus on programming.
Mhm.
What kind of programs do we bring in? What kind of programs does the community ask us for? What kind of, I mean, the community wants us to do more giant concerts, which we don't really enjoy. They're a lot of work. We don't really like to do them. The 5,000 or so doesn't create a big impact in town. Everybody can be happy. The site is really great for that. So we're trying to target that 5,000 and below going forward.
If you get over 7, 8, right, it becomes a big animal, right?
Well, it's just, it's, and as Missy points out several times, that once you start to get up into those bigger numbers, there's to put all the amenities on site that you need to serve that many people, you suddenly don't have room for all those people. So we're bumping into ourselves on that. So we're looking at really having some discipline on what kind of projects we accept. Now, since we're self-supporting, it's tempting to take those because we do make some money from them.
Right.
But we're a nonprofit, so our goal is not to make money. Our goal is to provide programming.
Yeah. Jeff, can we just back up a little bit? So philosophically, and help me, keep me honest here, but the town built that facility largely with private donor money, et cetera, originally, and those donors are memorialized out front. And I think
the town accepted it as a gift.
Right.
Yes, it was built by private.
And there was
actually, to be specific, about half of it was state funding.
Yeah, you're right. And then there was a small piece from the town infrastructure fund, which I think made up the gap. Point being is I recall those numbers being in the 10, 25, 100,000. I think there was even a $250,000 donation in there, I think, maybe anonymously. What immediately struck me is we're going to give away the naming rights to the facility for potentially less money than the folks that originally kicked in to build the thing. And I'll be honest, my initial reaction is that doesn't fly with me.
Well, I would say
we're going to name the facility for 250,000. That just doesn't feel right. I guess is where I'm coming from.
I doubt that 250 would put your name on the facility.
Yeah,
it's just not enough.
Right.
That it needs to be a substantial gift to put your name on the facility.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know we've talked about this. It goes beyond, I think, naming the actual full-scale facility itself. It goes into, are there separate rooms we're naming after? Chris, isn't this something we've spoken about a little bit, to pare it down a bit? And I think just the general concept of, we understand that the building is town-owned, and how does that play into it, even when you scale down to, say, naming a classroom after someone or what?
Yeah, no, that doesn't bother me, right? It's but if we're gonna put Eric Wellman's name up on the building, there should be 7 figures or more in the check that Eric Wellman writes. Is my philosophy on that. Again, I can move around on that, but $100,000 doesn't get your name on a facility that a lot of people already paid for. Is my point.
$100,000, and we're still not building a facility.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need
we're all on the same page there. Sorry. So just forgive me if I'm just.
What we wanted to do was establish guidelines so we could market this when we're fundraising. If you donate X, here's the benefits that you get. And not all those benefits have naming issues around them, but some of them do. So we wanted to establish levels at which the town was comfortable. If you donate $25,000, is that enough to get your name on a classroom or a meeting space? Do you need to do $500,000 or $750 to do the naming rights for the bill? Like, what are those thresholds that we want to meet? Because in order for us to be able to speak to these potential donors or corporations, we need to know what they're getting for their give. And this is not our decision to make. This is why we're here. So
that's right.
So I think there's, in my mind, there's 2 parts. One is what's the right amount of money? How much are we willing to, how much would we want for this? But the other piece would be, what are the kinds of people or organizations, what parameters would we want to put around whose name goes on there? Does it have to be an individual, or could it be a company? That kind of thing.
Yes. Well, it's something of a disaster to rename the facility, that from a communication standpoint. So once if we put a new name on there, we have to be committed to that name being there for a long time. There are facilities around Connecticut that change the name every 5 years on a new contract.
Mhm.
And I don't know what to call them anymore.
We still call them the Meadows, right?
So, yeah, I
Seriously.
mean,
That's the reality. We still call it the Meadows, regardless
we
of what
just-
Comcast wants it called.
we can't change names all the time. We
Right.
can't chase money like that. That becomes really hard for us to build a reputation. Really hard for people to remember who we are. We
Well,
just have to be careful with that.
And I think that if there's a threshold established at which we're willing to allow a name to go on the building, over the course of how many years is that donation made, and what's the contract length of that name on the building? Do they have the ability to make the donation? Let's just say someone came up with $1 million.
Mhm.
That donation over 5 years, but they get a 10-year or a 15-year right on the building. We need to talk about what those steps are, because in order to try to even sell this, we need to, again, know what we're offering from that the town is comfortable with, because we don't want to overpromise.
Mhm. Well, and then
If-
from a construction standpoint, who's taking the debt out? If it's a 5-year payback, I mean, are we getting a loan and that's, those payments are guaranteeing it? Is the town fronting the money? There's a lot of complexity to that, right? Because you need the entirety of the donation up front to build the facility. You can't wait 5 years for it. Right?
Right.
Yes, that's right. And
Sorry.
we do not have an ability to borrow money.
Yeah.
Or
We can't
concession.
borrow money because we don't have collateral.
Right.
Well, I mean, churches and stuff, I mean, they've guaranteed their capital based on, donor commitments and such. I think there's an amount you come up with. I think, didn't St. Mary's just did this?
Well, I just did it at First Church, so I was in charge of the capital campaign, not in charge of the capital campaign, but the building committee there.
Yeah.
But we have collateral. We own property. So we used our real property as our
Gotcha.
collateral for the loan.
Gotcha. Because you're
Because
gonna pay us. Yeah.
the Performing Arts Board doesn't have any collateral.
Right. Because it's all the town owned property. That's right.
Have
So
to
we
give it
have
away.
ones that incur the debt. Okay. Now that makes sense. And can we do that? All right. So there's a lot of complexity to this. So
There's
is
a lot
there,
of-
are there blueprints? Are there samples? I mean, we're not the first ones to do this. I mean, are other facilities, do they have a roadmap on how this works?
There have been, I've looked at smaller performing arts centers around New England that have done, and larger ones, even like at the Tanglewood level, how they've given away. And it's all over the map in terms of donor levels, if they had matching funds, it's complicated, right? So I could try to put together a spreadsheet of, what some of the facilities have done, because there's been some recent, developments. I mean, I don't know what the Bridgeport facility gave away for naming rights for that facility, but that's a significant investment by the state.
Right.
I think we need to look at smaller facilities, like there's smaller ones down in Southern Connecticut in little towns. There's ones out in New York. But some of them are backed by family trusts as well.
But
So
it's the one
again-
that's downstate that most of their performances are free.
Yes.
You have to get a ticket, but it's free.
But
And
it's,
that's a family foundation that
Yeah.
just funds everything. They fund the building, they fund the projects, they fund everything.
So have you guys decided, or is there a direction? Are we going after a specific set of money? Jeff, as you said, somewhere between, we'll call it 2 million and 5 million, right? For the bare minimum to this is what we'd really like the back to look like.
Yeah.
Or is it a larger holistic capital campaign?
No, I think that what we're pursuing right now is to try and finish the facility.
Mhm.
Again, because, when we went out and tested the market on how do people feel about raising money for this, awful lot of what we got back was, this is a town facility. Why am I giving you money for this? And as I said, it's not sexy. I think later on, when we go out and raise money for programs, we'll be able to make that a lot more interesting. And that was part of this on the bigger monies. That was part of it. But I think in the short run, and I mean over the next 2 years, what we're going to be looking at is trying to finish this facility.
So ballpark, are we talking about, from a naming standpoint, the asset itself, so the entirety of the facility, and then what, 2 to 4 spaces within it?
Some spaces within it. Yeah, that would be nice.
Well,
There was
and part of the conversation, I think that needs, and you brought it up, Sean, was what type of entities are we willing to consider for naming rights for the building?
Yeah.
Is that aren't consistent with the mission of the town that we don't want, to have naming rights on.
Yeah, the GoDaddy Performing Arts Facility just doesn't sound right. I mean, again, but that may be the opportunity that comes along in this space, right? It's usually that's the
Right,
challenge.
but I mean, I would assume that we're not gonna want, the Anheuser-Busch, or a cigarette company,
No.
or, I mean, I'm making
No.
assumptions here, so.
Right.
But I would assume that kind of logic would apply. Looking for corporate sponsors that are mission oriented and, family friendly and, all of that.
Yes. As far as the dollar amounts go, I think I struggle with it because I don't know what the market can bear. But I think there's obviously going to be a lot more sensitivity around the name of the facility rather than a classroom. So does 25,000 sound right for a classroom? Sure, that sounds like a decent chunk of change. But I guess my larger point is, if you can connect what you're asking for to whatever benchmarking you've been able to do, and I understand it's variable, but I also agree with what Sean said, that we're probably, I think it would be approaching 7 figures if we were to actually put someone's name on the facility. And I just think about the reaction from the community. In the short term, it's not going to be good no matter what the name is, and then people will get used to it. That's my belief.
Yes and no. I mean, if it's a Performing Arts Center sponsored by Ensign Beckford or something like that, I think people don't bat an eyelash because they're used to that, right? If it's the Gillette Performing Arts Center, I think it raises eyebrows, right? So it kind of depends on who it is. If it's the Hartford, people probably don't care, right? If it's, some of the local type corporations that we're all used to seeing, right?
Yeah.
And that's likely who we're going to target, but again, I don't know, and I'm not educated in this space, but the number is somewhere between 25 and 50% of the value of the asset feels like the number for the name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they have to be big enough to be around.
Right.
I mean, we don't really want to name our, Blockbuster Stadium
Right.
was not a great name.
And please, can we keep crypto out of it?
Yeah. Yes, we would like for this to be a long-term.
The Dogecoin.
If we're going to do this, it should be for the long term. So that speaks to larger amounts. It speaks to stable enough companies that can do that.
Well, and that's where, I mean, again, I would leave it to you guys, but the structure in which that you get enough of the funds up front, and so we can avoid the financing piece if we have to, because that makes it more complicated from a town side. But let's say the Hartford wants to give you $5 million and they give you 2.5 up front, and they give you the rest of it over a 10-year period. I mean, again, that's an opportunity, I think, for you guys as well from a longer term standpoint for the maintenance, improvement of the facility or whatever as part of the contract. Again, I don't want to micromanage it, but to me, that feels like something that we would put a name on very easily for, and it would provide you stability over the tenure of that name. Because I think it has to be a mutually beneficial stability on both sides, is helping you keep that facility running for its intended purposes too.
Yeah, and some of that money, as we originally had looking for the larger sums, was to give ourselves some the ability to take risks on shows,
right?
So that we can control what goes on stage. so that we can control the rest of it.
All right.
The more control that we have, the easier it's going to be for us to just do the kind of things that we think that the town wants, that we think that the citizens of Simsbury want, and that they'll enjoy. And it just, that's going to help us a lot. So that's that extra money that we're looking for, is that ability to not sort of take whoever knocks on the door.
Right.
That doesn't always work for us.
No, and I go ahead, Missy. Sorry.
It supports staffing growth too, right? So
Yep.
like this year, we're adding a development person, which is huge for us and very timely. She will start May 9th and will be our second full-time employee ever. Yes.
Mhm.
And we added a programs person. But again, just those two people, when the back of this gets built, doesn't program it the way our big dreams, want it to be down the road. So a lot of that money has to do with people that facilitate the programming. So, as Jeff noted, a huge step for us is just this back of the building so that I have somewhere to meet with my staff. Like literally our facility right now doesn't support that. So it doesn't, again, it's not sexy to the community.
Mhm.
Community will see it on the back end once we're able to operate like a standard performing arts facility.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of my point is, again, I know we're trying to drive the building of it, but again, all of that support, I think, improves and increases and sells the buy-in for whomever names this facility, right? Because again, the bricks go up, that's great. If we don't have the shows and the talent and everything else,
Right.
what were the bricks for? And if we can't support the staff, everything else, and you guys are doing a great job, but as you said, there's 2 people down there and the rest of you are doing this in your free time, right? So again, I would encourage you to leverage the hell out of this opportunity with the name that provides you some stability, again, over the life of that name. And I imagine that's pretty standard, right? In the naming, and it spreads out the donation and people do it for tax purposes or whatever. But because again, I get it. I mean, your sound towers, anything that you can do that lowers your per show cost is huge for you guys, right? That's money that you then can reinvest in the types of shows and programs that we're all demanding that are really expensive for you to hold right now. Right.
And it's on us to tell the right story, of course, because I think people aren't able to connect the dots like you are right now, where, oh, guess what? Sound towers actually do lead to programming. Because the number one question we got during our feasibility study was, great, so if I give money to this capital campaign for this building that I don't really use, what programs are going to come on the stage? And it was kind of like, okay, well, if we give
like third, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I've paid attention enough over the years. I get it.
This conversation has also made me think, like, strategically, as we, town dollars go into this facility, that we should be funding the unsexy things and let donors fund the things they want to pay for.
Yeah.
If we can finagle that.
I mean, that's how the original thing was built, right? Is you got this, the state money and everything else. And then it was that you were able to draw on the private funds to hit it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there was
Private-
So I really want to
Private-public
make,
partnership.
yes, Jeff, sorry.
Well, private-public partnership. I mean, that's and where everybody falls in that continuum is some of what we're trying to look at. We've got somebody for the bathrooms. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're trying to find other, but we may at some point come back and ask you for help with the non-sexy stuff. We know that that's hard. There's a lot of demand. We have budget referendum coming up. There's a lot of demand for every dollar. But truly, this is once the town made the commitment to build this facility, you really committed to make it be something.
Yep.
Right. And we feel like we've been, it's been okay.
Mhm.
We've run it on the zero cost method. We're in it for a long time with that, before we hired an executive director. Let's have no expenses. We're nonprofit with easy way. That was not moving us forward. Having an executive director is definitely moving us forward.
Yeah.
Having some control over our shows will definitely move us forward. Having the back end of we just feel like we've been stuck in the same place for a long time. And it'd be great to move forward, because this can be a great facility and people love to come to Simsbury.
I agree. And again, it's interesting, you open my eyes that So it's challenging that you got pushback that folks think it's a town owned and financed facility during your capital campaign, but that actually is important for me to know, because if I put it in the budget, that's what people assume. So that actually helps us from a funding standpoint to know that information, that it's not viewed as something necessarily outside of the town asset pool. So
Mm,
so that
Right.
that is helpful as Eric and I think about, what we bring back to the board from a budgetary standpoint. So because again, I mean, it's become a staple of the community. So if it were to go away, that would not be good for the community. So in a way, it is the board's responsibility to stay connected and to figure out how to help and support and finance where it makes sense. So high level, because I do need to run. I want to make sure that I'm there on naming rights. I think we're all in the same ballpark in
Mhm.
terms of got to be morally and ethically and all the things that we care. Again, I'm not going to quibble over one insurance company or another, right? But I think we can all very easily list the things that we probably wouldn't want this thing called. And then again, we can put some better parameters and come up with some better advice on the dollar amounts. But again, I think to me, it's something that's substantial enough to get you what you need and to provide you stability to actually get the usage out of the space that you intend to for some reasonable period of time, is kind of how I look at it in giving the name rights, because I think those two are important. I agree, we got to get shovels in the ground, but I think we also have to support the facility for its intended programmatic use for some meaningful period of time through that. And then again, rooms, classrooms, again, I'll leave it to the experts on it. Again, I assume those are families or foundations or whatever that makes sense. But Eric, if you feel differently, but structurally, I'm very much there.
So because we're having a little bit of an ambiguous conversation regarding levels, would it be helpful if we came up with a proposal
Yeah.
from our standpoint of what we would envision those levels to be and what the give is to those donors?
I think it is. And again, if it's not too much, what does Ethel Walker give away for a classroom, or what does, Westminster, or, again, we don't have to match it, but again, I have no basis here. Is it 25 grand or is it 100 grand? Because I don't want you to leave money on the table either. Right? If you're giving it away for a deal, then you could have gotten another 75 grand out of that classroom. Let's make sure you're getting what you should. That's normal for the quote unquote marketplace here.
Okay.
Great. Agreed. Yeah.
These
yeah,
are
I'm right
good.
there with you.
Go
We'll
ahead.
work on that. Okay.
Oh, listen, I should have led with this, but like everything we're talking about is improving in town-owned facilities. I'm so grateful to this
Yeah.
group and your entire board for your passion around the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah.
We appreciate your support.
So does my dog.
Okay.
All right, guys, I got to jump, but thank you. Eric,
All right.
when we're getting together again. But again, I echo everything Eric just said. Thank you for your work on this. I know how hard it is. So
Yeah.
but have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Is there anything? Oh, we lost Missy. Anything else, or are we good, do you think?
No, I think we're going to put something together that we can look at to give us some targets.
Yeah, perfect.
And I think
the right
that's
next
important
step.
for us as well, to have that, to have those targets.
Yeah.
And Tom,
okay.
do you want that sent directly to you? And then you can give it to Sean, or are we allowed to reply all? I don't want to
Yeah, no,
violate FOIA.
yeah,
So,
you should send to me and then we can schedule a meeting and put it in a packet and discuss. it.
okay.
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 Yeah. All right. Have
Okay,
a good
great.
day, everybody.
Thank you so
Goodbye.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.